Hello, friends. Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I was lucky enough to be able to have a live interview with the head sales rep of NorthFin up in Canada. Some of the things that were revealed during this interview, such as the relationship between aquarium temperature and feeding and metabolism, and the different ways that food can be prepared, and what makes Northfin a quality fish food, and what do all those ingredients that you see listed on the back of your fish food container, what does all that mean, and what does that mean with regards to Northfin, and should it be considered one of our best available options for feeding our fish? So let's go ahead and get into it. Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm going
Glad to
to
join you. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And first of all, I want to thank you for sending me those samples of Northfin. I've already put them to good use, both in feeding my fish and in sending a few of them out to the viewers. And they're going to be giving me some feedback on that very shortly, I'm sure. But as I mentioned a while back, we I was using Northfin for a while, and just sort of drifted a bit. And I think it has more to do with the fact that my contact, who I'm sure you're familiar with, Jay Wilson,
Yes.
was went on to do other things, and I sort of drifted off as well. Got introduced to other types of food, but I was very excited to try it again, and my fish have given it 2 fins up in the times I fed them. So tell me
Great
a
to
little
hear.
bit, for those of you, for the folks out there who are not familiar with Northfin, can you tell us a little bit about Northfin, about the company, and its origins, and then maybe
Sure.
segue into how you got involved and what your role is in the company?
Sure. Well, thank you again. And Northfin started really over 10 years ago with the owner, Darius Holosinskis, an avid African cichlid breeder, and here in the Toronto area, and a very accomplished one. So again, an avid hobbyist, just like yourself and many other people that we of course know, and that's how it all began. He was using certain foods on the market, and at the end of the day, he had good results with the foods, but at the end of the day, he was ultimately disappointed, and felt that the quality level could be better in a food. He actually comes from an engineering background, and has a lot of experience with extrusion, which is the manufacturing process that we use to make our products, much like other fish foods or other pet food products, even the Cheerios in our cupboards, the cereals and pastas that we enjoy. They're all made with the extrusion process. So Darius brought some experience with him, and decided to put together formulas for various types of fish, and ultimately created the company with his wife Asta, and built basically the company from the ground up.
And what year are we in here?
So we're about 10 years ago.
10 years. Okay, so
10 years
2013.
ago. Actually, it'll be 10 years. The company will be officially 10 years old this coming September.
Okay. And
So, yeah.
when you say, for those out there who don't know what that is, can you give just a quick summary on what you mean by extrusion?
So the extruder is the piece of equipment that is part of the process in manufacturing the foods. Basically, the ingredients are mixed together before it joins the extruder. It's basically there's a mixing and a conditioning area before the dry mix enters, and then there's steam and pressure involved. So it basically gets wet. It gets to a higher temperature, and then there is what we call envision a long barrel um, made of aluminum. Usually it's aluminum and stainless steel parts, uh, and the mix is mixed and follows through the barrel of the extruder under pressure, and inside that barrel. So there's connections like for steam, and there's of course other control systems involved, and inside the barrel is what we call a screw, and it looks like a very large screw with flights along the length of the screw, and they can be in different sizes, extruders, depending on the output, and and then there's different styles as well. We use it was a custom machine that has been put together by Darius, and we use what's called a twin screw extruder. There are other extruders called single screw extruders, and the the double screw extruder allows us to extrude at somewhat lower temperatures and with less friction, and that really suits our type of product, our specialty product, when we're making down pellet sizes down to as small as 0.5 millimeter. A twin screw extruder is most effective
So,
in
so,
this kind of
so,
a product.
so the reason you're using a less heat is that would that heat have a negative? I'm assuming it's because it might have a negative impact on nutrients.
Well, because we make a pet food product, we do have to have minimum heat, minimum heat, and there's regulations for that. So we have to meet a minimum heat requirement, and with our style of extruder and our size of extruder, we typically are around the lower end on the amount of heat that we need, and still meet the regulations for safety and food quality, because we're inspected by the Canadian Food Inspection, and we are a certified plant able to sell our product both domestically and into the USA or internationally. So that's something we have plant inspections and we have to meet very stringent criteria when we're making the product. So
You say international criteria.
yes, you could. I mean, even internationally, for example, the EU requires different and certain requirements as well when it comes to process, and all the way down the path with respect to ingredients and operating principles, best management practices, things like that. So it's those they vary from country to country. So
I get it.
those are conditions that must be met by a manufacturer when you are exporting to those countries, and your customer has to, in most cases, usually have to have a permit to import, and the manufacturer has to meet the conditions of the permit. So that makes things very interesting for manufacturers who are looking to distribute their product around the world. So
Yep.
in
Is
Canada,
the
USA, we have very similar requirements.
and is the extruder producing both pellets and flakes?
No, no. An extruder produces strictly a pelleted product, although there is some flexibility to produce, of course, different sizes and shapes of products with an extruder. The flake process is an entirely different process and specific to that type of product.
Okay. The questions that folks have who are coming to NorthFin for the first time, or perhaps had a similar background to myself, where
Mhm.
they were with it and then came away and then came back, uh, and without necessarily mentioning any other product lines, which I tend to avoid during these kind of interviews. But what if I was just a cichlid keeper who had found out about NorthFin for the first time?
Yes.
What would be the draw? What do you think would be the reason why I would consider NorthFin ahead of other popular brands that are out there? What in your mind makes NorthFin a a solid product, and maybe even in your mind a superior product? What are the plus points about NorthFin?
So I'll start off in answering that for you, Ben, in describing our main focus at NorthFin, and that is on the fish. So if we're going to focus on the fish, and we're producing, or we're trying to produce the best dry extruded fish food product that we can, then we have to keep that in focus, and that really uh, drives and determines what we're going to do with formulation. Because we are a smaller company, um, we believe we can do things and make selections of ingredients that are the best available without compromise. And our view with in particular a premium food is to not put anything in the food that doesn't need to be there at all. And we keep our formulations simple and don't dilute them down with other products that will cheapen the formula cost wise, but ultimately would not be the best for the fish long term.
I want to expand on that in a
Sure.
second, but you mentioned something that brought something else to mind. Uh, what is the current size of NorthFin? How many staff? What kind of facility is it in?
We're a family owned company. So we're a handful of people. We are certainly not, uh, yeah, not a large company for sure. We are certainly a small business with a small team. And because of that, all of us are very flexible in our roles in the company. And there's a lot of advantages to that. We, uh, we are all very close to the product, to the whole process, uh, right from developing a new product from the get go, and all along the line where we're controlling the product right from the beginning. We source our ingredients ourselves. We purchase those. We make our own product uh, in small runs, uh, and there's a lot of benefit to that. We don't need to pull product that's been perhaps manufactured in very large bulk quantities that perhaps may be stored for a long time. We can do smaller runs and move from formula to formula, and that's a big benefit to the customer there.
So sort of a small batch, artisanal, family owned
Yes.
kind of stuff you see at farmers markets. John.
Well, I I come from my experience with fish, and fish foods comes from almost 3 decades working in the aquaculture industry here in central Canada, in Ontario primarily, and working for still a family-owned business, but it was a commercial and aquaculture feed manufacturer and a pet food manufacturer, much larger than NorthFin. And um, the the experience I've actually gained there was, brought to NorthFin is very valuable. The goals are very different with in the agriculture sector, where least cost formulations and fast growth and getting in the case of aquaculture, getting fish to market very fast is the goal. But for our pets at home, we want them. The goals are different, and the approach with NorthFin with a ornamental fish food is just to produce a diet without compromise. And that's not the same when you're feeding rainbow trout, for example, or catfish or tilapia.
Right, right. In a farm fish situation.
Correct.
So your company currently, I'm guessing, is under 20 staff.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay, okay. You get a feel for that. It's definitely not uh, a tetramin or something like that, but that's not
No,
what somebody would be looking for when they're buying your fish food.
no.
Uh, the other thing that you mentioned, the best available ingredients. Now that's a very strong claim. It's a claim, of course, that uh, other what I would call boutique fish food makers would also claim. What in your give me your description and why the
Okay,
ingredients of Northfin are the best available.
okay. Uh, we use in the case of our marine proteins, we're looking at the best digestibility possible from the ingredients that we're purchasing, and uh, we're not afraid to share and mention that we use high quality whole herring and or whole sardine meals, and that gets people's back up a bit. There's a lot of different grades of ingredients that companies can buy, and at the end of the day, a meal is just the physical format of an ingredient that's being ground down into a finer particle or powder. And that's what we need to do when we're manufacturing food. And so that's where that's where we benefit actually from those who've come before us uh, with working with fish food diets in the aquaculture sector, where their protein digestibility is very critical to them. They want good protein retention. So high quality, very high quality whole fish meals are really the best choice. They're again, we're talking higher protein levels of these products. We're talking levels of, in some cases, in excess of 70% protein with some of these products. You can source, if you're putting together, if you're a fish food company and you're putting together a diet, you could actually source um, fish meals that are a lot lower protein, which have a lot more content of either ash or fiber levels that are really in excess of what we really need in a quality fish food. So these more expensive meals are exactly that. They are very costly. Companies can make a choice of what quality they're looking for, and you want a consistent um, product as well. That you're purchasing. Um, we use also the Antarctica whole krill. Um, and that is a consistent and sustainable product that we source, and it is again not a product that's coming from processing plants, for example, which could just contain certain portions of shrimp, for example. So it's a whole world of different quality levels of ingredients that a manufacturer has at their
So
in
so
their.
what's the primary difference if one fish food lists tilapia or herring or krill, and on the Northfin brand, you see that word repeating itself, whole.
Whole. Yes.
And so, what is the difference when one company says tilapia or herring, and your
Herring?
company
Okay.
says whole
Okay.
tilapia, whole
Whole,
herring?
well,
What does that
well,
mean?
herring. The family of fish of the herring and sardines have uh, have a lot more. meat or protein, like for their body size, relative to those larger fish with larger heads. I had for example, and there are very again, because they're smaller fish too. Any bone content too tends to be softer with those fishes as well. And if you were to take fish that are much larger and dry them down and grind them up into a meal, you can get very different products. So, for example, I had a supplier contact us with a carp meal product, but it didn't compare at all, because again, this fish there's a much higher level of bone content in that fish compared to the herring, for example, that we use. So it's just a fantastic marine source protein to use. There's different, as you mentioned, there's different fishes, and it has to be a product that is always available and that we can count on and has consistency of good quality. And so we have good relationships with these suppliers that, well, in my case, go back because I know some of these suppliers for now over 30 years, and so that's an also important aspect too, that we can always count on the ingredient and know and be assured of the quality and where it's coming from and the processes.
So you receive from these suppliers, whether it's Antarctic or from wherever, you receive these large shipments of the actual fish. This is not something that has been turned into a ground up or minced or anything like that. You receive the actual fish.
No. Extrusion, I mean, it requires a dry product to be mixed, okay, into the mixture. So if you're trying to, you can't just take a whole fish and try to jam that into your extruder. So you're talking about a product that's basically wet, right? It doesn't work that way. The moisture,
so you get a fish that's been dried out somehow.
You still have to grind it up, because it still has to be ground up into a small particle size or right. Flour consistency, because it's going to plug up your extruder. You can't be making.
So you're receiving it already dried up and ready to put Correct. In the extruder.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, it's ready.
But it's in a way that you're able to identify that this is exclusively 100% herring. This isn't. They Correct. Haven't put any filler in.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Very
now, I just should mention that most fish food manufacturers and pet food manufacturers will also have a piece of equipment called a hammer mill, and that basically takes all of the different ingredients and they're mixed together and ground to a nice fine grind flour consistency. For example, we use only one binder in our product, and that's a high quality bakery flour, and it's already comes in very, very nice fine particle size. Some of the proteins that come in, they're ground further down, to that smallest particle size. So that's all mixed together, and then it goes into the machinery.
Okay, and the when you look at things like, and of course this is your background, of course, is African cichlids, I assume the first love of the owner, but as African cichlid keepers, we certainly with the Malawis, we worry about things like bloat.
Right.
At the same time, we have to make sure that they are getting, especially the predator, the more carnivore and omnivore, make sure they're getting enough protein. What kind of philosophy or ingredient percentages have been taken into account for both the bloat issue and the providing of enough, bioavailable protein to these fish? What is NorthFin doing in that area to help with that?
So with respect to bloat, keeping carbohydrate levels low in a food certainly I believe helps that, and just a very high digestibility um, is easier on our fish, easier on their digestive tracts, and uh, excessive levels of carbohydrates in a food, especially from terrestrial grain sources, are can cause digestive upset and inflammation. So that's something that, uh, generally speaking, people need to be aware of. That carbohydrate tolerances of fish are generally low versus other animals, including people like ourselves. Um, we have a higher tolerance to carbohydrate, and of course, amongst those different feeding behaviors, carnivore fish have a lower tolerance to it um, than the omnivore fish, and the herbivore fish, again with more longer digestive tracts, are used to feeding all consistently, right, and processing more volume of material. Um, something that's not mentioned a lot when it comes to people talking about bloat or the effects of that food has on our fish. Um, you know, we've all heard one of the biggest problems in the hobby can be overfeeding fish, and certainly uh, that would contribute as well to I believe bloat, especially if it's a food that has an excessive level of carbohydrate,
And
because
and when
the
you say
fish just can't process.
carbohydrates, for those out there not
So
nutritionally savvy, what are the things
okay,
that if we look at an ingredient list,
yes.
we would say that's a carb, that's a carb, that's a carbohydrate? What are the things
So
commonly found that are high in carbohydrates in food?
okay, so the carbohydrate portion of the diet, if just to simplify it here for your viewers, is that if we look at a diet and look at the guaranteed analysis that you would see on a bag of fish food, for example, if you were to take 100% and subtract the protein portion of the diet, the fat portion, the moisture level, the fiber level, and the ash level, we get a general idea of the carbohydrate content. However, uh, ultimately, um, the level is going to be determined by um, ultimately what's digested. Uh, Protein levels again are described as minimum levels on most food packages for pet food. So it typically should be at least that level if that's what's being described in the food. So, but you typically could have on higher quality foods even more protein in the diet. Again, if you're looking at the guaranteed analysis, that's a minimum level, and then you've got fat levels as well. And uh, with respect to the different feeding types of fish, carnivore fish generally, uh, should have levels that are certainly below 30, but ideally well below 25 if we can. And that would also hold
And when you
true.
say 25, are you talking about carbohydrates?
25%, yeah. So, and keep in mind too that uh, fish can utilize carbohydrate, but again, their tolerance level varies, right, on the different types of fish. So omnivores tend to be very opportunistic feeding behavior and tend to do better and have a higher tolerance level. Some of those grazing fish some of those African cichlid grazing fish like that we see from Africa are consuming a lot of plant material, right? Which actually contains a fairly high carbohydrate level. But the point of difference being is it's marine, it's not terrestrial. So I'm sure you've seen those videos of fish in the rift lakes that are grazing and see the amount of roughage and some of the material that they actually are scattering over the rocks. You know, they're processing quite a bit of material there, and there certainly is a carbohydrate fraction there in the plant material that they're eating. But they do excellent, don't they? I mean, that seems to be a natural food for them. And so we have to be careful when we put together diets for fish that are herbivore fish. We want to see that plant material that would be as close as possible to what they would see in the wild. That's why at NorthFin we use kelp, and it's a fantastic product that we purchase and source here. And it has nowhere near the protein level of herring, for example, or the krill, but it has so many other benefits that we know the fish that utilize the high mineral contents of these of the kelp, and they just do so much better by having that type of carbohydrate source. So we want to. Yeah, sorry.
As opposed to soy, which is not a marine product, right?
No. So when we get to the terrestrial grains, protein sources, it's not that some of those products don't have protein. They do. We don't choose to use any of those products. And then the main reason is because of the other components that come with those ingredients. And those are what we call anti-nutritionals. And there's certain things in those ingredients that basically the fish don't like the taste of, first of all, and they are cheaper to buy. They again are not ideal. You'll see more of their use in aquaculture feeds to try to cheapen the feed going to the fish farm. They don't have the protein level overall, and compared to the herring, so it basically dilutes the formula, their use. If I'm putting together a new NorthFin product, and I'm trying to target a certain protein level, I'm certainly not going to meet it by adding all kinds of 48% crude protein soybean meal when I could be adding 70%, 60, 70% or higher level top quality protein, marine protein, which also, by the way, has a much better amino acid balance. So amino acids being the building blocks of protein, those marine proteins we use have such a perfect amino acid balance for fish. So it would be compromising for us to even consider using any products like whole soybeans, whole corn, even more refined sources of those ingredients as well, because although refining some of those proteins further to extract out more protein doesn't necessarily remove some of the anti-nutritionals from those products. So again, we totally stay clear of those products. They would be totally just compromising the quality of our food.
That's good to know, actually. And the only ingredient that I think jumped out at me in that first review, and again, for any of you who came on to this video late, I included a link of that first video, and I'll include it as the first comment under the video. I'll include a link to that first interview. But it says here, just to give you one example, this is your cichlid formula.
Yes,
you can see, and it has 42% crude protein, which is high by industry standards. 42% crude protein, fat 5%, fiber 5%, moisture 9%, which is like right in there, right around average, what you see, and
yes,
ash at 9%, which is probably more towards the low end of what you see in the industry. The fourth ingredient, we've got the whole Antarctic krill, the whole herring meal, the whole sardine meal, and then we get into wheat flour, which is
Correct.
followed by organic kelp and spirulina and garlic, all great things.
Yes.
So is this wheat, you've got the organic kelp, is the wheat organic as well, or is it subject to pesticides?
We use a human grade wheat flour.
Human grade wheat product, but is that, do you know if that's organic, or like you mentioned organic, so obviously the
Oh,
company is aware of organics, but it's not listed as an organic wheat. Is it just a conventionally grown wheat for human consumption, which would be subject to pesticides?
yeah, we don't list it as an organic wheat flour. And if it certainly was organic, we would list that.
Okay. But the kelp is organic, so we know that nothing is polluting that. Spirulina and garlic, those are all great ingredients. And then a vitamin mix, which is a vitamin mix that is something that you're trying to approximate what the diet would be in the lake, or how was this vitamin mix arrived at?
Those manufacturers usually work very closely with the vitamin and mineral premix companies, and those mixes are, in our case, we work with a company that puts those mixes together for us. Again, we're want to meet the minimum requirements for fish, in every aspect of the requirement there. Some vitamins can be added separately, like stabilized vitamin C can be added separately. We've got a core product, both vitamin and mineral premix that we've been using for years, and typically companies will use in complete foods, both with pet food, and this applies too for our furry pet friends, cats and dogs and small animals, where the diets are complete nutritionally. So that's why there's certain mineral requirements that are, and we want to meet those for sure. You can be, you could be, it could be risky just to rely on vitamins and minerals from the base ingredients. So typically most nutritionists will certainly add a vitamin supplement or a mineral supplement to a complete product, complete pet food product. So
it doesn't replace whole food.
Right.
Now you mentioned on your bags, I've noticed this thing. It said brand of the year, and is this something that goes on in Canada? Brand of the year,
No.
the stamp that you have on the bags?
No, actually, yeah, we were quite excited to receive in our region a World Branding Award, and we just got notice that we received another award, actually, recognition of our brand in our region, and so that's something we're very proud of, and it's actually the World Branding Awards recognize all kinds of different products, actually, not just pet food.
So were you in a, for lack of a better word, you were in competition with all types of products, not just pet foods?
Well, we're in the fish food category, and
okay, so there's a category.
What's involved there are some surveys, and the public are contacted regarding their use of a particular product. In this case, it would be fish foods, and yeah, they tally the results there from that process. And yeah, a few years ago, we were contacted and were told that we had won that award. So
it's a consumer satisfaction survey of sorts.
That's right.
Now, you have a lot more, and I think folks out there always equate your company with African cichlids. At least I did until just recently.
Oh, okay.
But I noticed you have a much broader range now. You have you have
We
beta
do.
foods, you have community foods, um, you have a krill flake, you have all kinds of other
That's right.
products. Anything new and exciting about the NorthFin line that you'd want to share that you either
Yeah.
have recently released or have in the pipeline for release?
Well, absolutely. Again, if I could just go back a little bit there, I mean, the initial formulas presented were cichlid, veggie, kelp wafers, community. We have a tropical sticks, floating stick food as well. And then later on, there were some products added, arowana. Now, of course, up here in Canada, there's more arowanas legally kept here, right? Compared to the United States. But so some additional formulas came in on stream. Super beta we added our existing beta bits product.
What makes it super?
The super beta, oh, you're holding one there, great. The super beta is krill based, okay? And again, if we're looking at marine proteins, that is a superfood for sure. The superfood of the ocean. It's quite incredible how that even sustains the whales. A single product like that.
Would a product that dense in protein be recommended as a daily staple, or is it something you would mix in occasionally?
Well, again, I want to come back to that when I had mentioned about people overfeeding. I think it's very important for people hobbyists to realize that we can't get don't get too caught up on protein levels. Protein and protein, carbohydrate, fat, and ash levels. That's a specification, but when we have to think in terms when we're feeding our fish, okay, that they have a protein requirement daily. So those fish right beside you there, they've got so many grams of protein they need every day. And I think if people hobbyists would realize that the more you feed, the more protein your fish is getting. You see, so having a certain ratio of protein to fat, for example, in a food is important. However, we can really make a difference in our aquariums in how we feed our fish. So you can reduce the amount of protein you put into your tank by actually reducing the amount of food you put in the tank. That's a big factor. And certainly young fish and carnivorous fish will want higher protein levels overall, and their diets need to be certainly have less carbohydrate. Baby fish, that's why we feed the foods we feed to fry, whether it's live food or krill or the different live foods people hobbyists use, because their carbohydrate tolerance is so low. And it's once they get into that juvenile size, you can start to transition those fish to diets that may have somewhat more carbohydrate level and lower protein levels. And then those fish that are more omnivorous and more herbivorous can sustain themselves on huge volumes of lower protein food to get their daily protein requirement, those numbers of grams of protein they need every day. And of course, that depends on water temperature as well, because that affects the fish metabolism and the amount of energy and protein requirement, right? Also, there's a genetic factor too. How fast fish grow is also genetically determined as well, right from birth. So we're, with a quality food, we're just trying to optimize their health and well-being. And you know, I do, you know, I do presentations for our regional aquarium clubs here in Ontario. I've been doing that for years, and that's something that comes up in in my presentations and talks is about, you know, how we're feeding fish, and most people would be surprised actually to know that you can reduce how much we feed our fish actually, and they still will be healthy. Um, I know from my experience working in the aquaculture industry that you can feed a fish to satiation, which means you know, feeding them till they're full, they won't eat anything more. They just ignore the food you're putting in. I mean, that's a very high feeding level. Now, that's something that's happening on fish farms, but in the aquarium, you typically could reduce your feeding level quite dramatically, as low as 30% of what they potentially could eat every day. As long as they're getting the grams of protein they need to stay healthy, maintain good body condition, um, that's excellent. Breeders that are growing fish and maybe they have certain goals to grow a certain batch of fish out in a certain amount of time. They might have different approach. Um, if you want to grow fish faster, you're going to feed more food. But again, you're well aware how more food going into our aquariums affects water quality in the system, and that has to be managed.
Exactly. And I imagine looking at our fish, looking at the coloration, the activity levels, look at the bellies. You know, are the bellies sunken? Are the bellies swollen?
Yes, yes,
We can ultimately dial in the right amount or the amount we would like to be feeding. Certainly with
I
humans,
agree.
I know I know quite a few humans that probably should be on 30% of what they're eating right now. So, and of course, we also hear of folks that will go for a day or two of fasting their cichlids just to clean out their intestine. Um, I don't
Yeah,
do that often, but
no,
certainly every now and then, if I give them, let's say, some frozen krill, that might be their only meal that day.
right.
Whereas if I'm feeding the flakes and pellets, I usually feed twice a day. And people talk about what they'll eat in a minute. You know, with African cichlids, are you kidding me? It's what they'll eat in 10 seconds.
See, they don't know there's food tomorrow. They're not that. We think of many of them. These fish are very smart, but they don't know there's food tomorrow. They eat all they can today, and they're
Yeah,
opportunistic in the wild as well, right?
yeah.
I typically don't feed my carnivore fish every day. Uh, the
Now,
more
do you
herbivorous fish want.
you skip a day when you with your fish?
Oh, absolutely. I don't. The tank behind me is in our main living room. Has a mix of fish. It's got some large silver dollars, and they don't like that. They'd like to be munching every day.
Yeah, they
But
don't carry a lot. They don't carry a big fat reserve.
you know, so there's there's an Oscar in there and a Manigwens, and there's a peacock bass and some Argentia, and yeah, I don't need to. I need to feed them every day, but those herbivorous fish, yeah, you know, they need to have food moving through them. I think on a daily basis, and certainly your observation about looking at our fish, observing our fish, tells you a lot for sure. And uh, yeah, the sunken belly, right? The condition of the body condition is gaining more experience in recognizing what is a healthy looking fish is what's great about, you know, acquiring more over years, acquiring more experience in being able to recognize what a healthy fish looks like.
I think
Sure.
it's interesting too. Also, the thing that you mentioned about and something people probably seldom think of. You know, the person who's keeping their tank at 81 versus the person that's keeping their tank at 77,
That's right.
and how that is going to create a a need for more food because of the metabolism demands at the higher temperature.
Yeah.
So I think that's a nuance that is seldom thought of by fish keepers. The fact that their feeding may have something to do with temperature, And
And
that was
then,
a very interesting point.
yeah, and then of course the oxygen demand that happens as soon as everyone is gorging on food at a high temperature, and then you'll see that respiratory rate increase because again they need fuel. They need the oxygen, the fuel to process, and so that's something to be aware of as well for people, especially if they're keeping fish in higher densities at higher water temperatures. That's
Yeah.
yeah,
Less dissolved oxygen.
yeah,
Yeah, I have, and you probably can't see it from your angle, but the top of this aquarium is like a raging river. I've got the outputs, two Shisei pumps that are outputting to the surface
right.
and breaking it up. So there's a tremendous amount of oxygenation going on. I don't like my fish working their mouths, except when they're eating. So to me, that's a
Right.
bad sign. Now,
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
have.
going, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention I have a large air stone in this tank behind me at the one end. It's actually this tank's drilled, so the filtration is all downstairs in the basement.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
so I have aeration down there with biomedia. That's aerated down there, but I also aerate up here as well. So uh, yeah, the fish are happy, but so are the good bacteria, right? Because
Right.
they need the oxygen, right? So
No, that's excellent that you're doing it that way. Returning better oxygenated water and oxygenating the tank itself is excellent. Do
that's
you
right.
suffer
Yeah.
from power outages where you are?
Yes, Ontario, Canada, we've had them for sure. I don't have an automatic generator, but I do have a gas powered generator that I can fire up if we run into issues. And it's happened. Yeah.
Yeah, happens here in Tennessee a lot. We get
Okay.
a lot of electrical storms. I have a couple of those, the UPS type uninterrupted power supplies that I can run the filters for up to a day.
Yes.
But
Oh, good.
if it gets longer than that, it's in particular in the winter, I can be in trouble. But
Yes.
at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and wrap this up, Jeff. And I want to know, is there any message in particular that you would like to deliver to folks who are considering uh, NorthFin? Well, is there some kind of something that you would want to make sure that they know uh, uh, in their weighing of the pluses and minuses of the NorthFin food products?
Well, we are constantly, we're still evolving as a company. We're bringing out new products. I want people to be aware of that. Where there's people asking us for certain products, and I didn't earlier. I should have mentioned that we're working on a new, very very small pellet that's insect protein based to complement our Bug Pro product. We're also working on better availability of our product across the USA. So developing good partnership relationships with distributors so that we can get our product to hobbyists. And we welcome people to contact us at info@northfin.com. We like to hear from everyone, whether it's hobbyists, stores, and we need to hear from people. We also want to throw some questions out to hobbyists. What we often hear comments like, no food's perfect. Well, but what would you like to see? I'd like to open up that to the viewers. What would you like to see in fish foods? Are we missing something? We'd like to get some commentary on that, and keeping in mind that we can add products, but remember, when we add a product, then we've got to remove something else or a portion of another one that's already in the product. So
Percentages are going to change, yeah.
you add more ingredients, you start splitting, and you can affect a formulation.
That's right.
That way.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and invite anyone who's watching this video to comment with any questions that they might have. And perhaps, Jeff, if your schedule allows, at some point in the not too distant future, we can then take up those questions individually, live
Sure.
in an interview. So, if what if you'd like to go ahead and comment under this video, uh, questions that Jeff can then address directly. I'll go ahead and pull them up as a screen and read them, and we'll go ahead and sort of do a live, as live as we can get interaction with the public on this, and find out what do you want? What do you want from a food? I know availability. I received an email from somebody in Canada saying that they're having trouble finding your flakes. Um, so distribution and availability. I know that's an issue. I know John over at KG Tropicals. He's a distributor. He was kind enough to give you my name.
Yes.
So if you folks are looking for a source of it here in the U.S., John at KG Tropicals certainly is a source, and I can put a link both in the description and in the comments under this video for that. But put your questions. Write your questions below. Jeff and I will set up another time, and we'll pick the questions that jump out at us, and we'll take them up. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Jeff, for spending the time with me. I know you're busy, and I'm excited about the my reacquaintance, my new relationship with NorthFin, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the company goes from here.
Yeah, well, thank you. We're excited about the future, and we're doing some things different. And I think the industry for decades, maybe in our view, I think was maybe getting a bit stagnated with development with tropical fish foods. And I have to give credit to our owner, Darius, in his action to basically put something different together that he was very passionate about. And but at the same time, we want to hear input and feedback. So I appreciate your feedback from your fish room on some of the different formulas. If you've got some different fish species there, I know you like cichlids. You've got lots of them, but our range does include a lot of different products. And now with flake foods too, it's rounding out our line a lot better. And but certainly we will continue to develop new products. But that happens with staying connected with the industry. And that's why doing an interview like this with you, that's a pleasure. And we're all hobbyists, right? And we speak the same language. And we know we can always do better, but we feel we've got something different. And we appreciate all the supporters that have really made a difference for NorthFin. It was initially it was reaching hobbyists directly to their fish rooms and talking to stores one by one that got things rolling for NorthFin, and then developing and acquiring some distribution was the next step. And that work continues. That's part of my job at the company. But as I mentioned to you, we're a small team, and our formulas, the people that are putting them and working on them and putting them together, you're talking to them. I've been involved with some of the newer products since I joined NorthFin in 2018, and it's a pleasure to be working with the team that I'm with, and share their passion. And that's where we're at, and the future's bright. We've got to stay promote the great aspects of our hobby. When I'm not at NorthFin, I'm sometimes at aquarium club meetings in my own local region. I'm a president of our local regional aquarium society, and it's I have the support of my wife Leanne, and I'm grateful for that, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but this hobby's worth it. It really is. There's no television on this main floor here where I'm speaking to you from. We don't need television. We've got a couple of aquariums. There's a nasty, we call him the mutt fish. He's my wife Leanne's flower horn cichlid over in the corner in a bow tank. And so the entertainment is is swimming in front of us, and for our family.
Commercial free.
Yeah.
I thank you for that. Don't
Yep.
don't leave the stream. Stay on the stream, and I'll get back on with you after I've ended this off. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So don't go anywhere. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed that. Be sure to ask your questions below in the comments, and then we will schedule a follow up where we can have Jeff address some of those questions in a follow up interview. All right. If you'd like to get your hands on some NorthFin, go ahead and contact John Hudson over at KG Tropicals. Again, I'll include some links, and of course, at my Saturday live streams, the Cichlids and Coffee live stream, I do from time to time give away some of the samples that are sent to me, so you can also score some NorthFin at those live streams. All right, thank you to Jeff and NorthFin and John Hudson for putting him on to me and my channel, and I appreciate you for tuning in. Hope to see you on Saturday at the live stream. And if you like the content of this channel, be sure to hit that hit the sub button, the thumbs up, and the bell. Thank you, my friends. I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.